Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about architecture. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, would you say that an organization should have an architecture team to provide architecture guidance and sign-offs to development teams? God no. No, 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 no. I have never seen that work. Not a single time. It's actually to the point, like I've actually had people in interviews with me who have asked, do you have an architecture team or an architect or something like that? Because if you do, I don't want to work here. And I can only relate to them because every single time I talk to a professional level architect who has not been a software developer, nothing good ever comes from it. Literally nothing. I will give them that if you're dealing, if they, and I give the same, I'll give the same free pass to agile coaches, scrum masters, all that sort of stuff. If you are dealing with a group of software developers who are truly only code monkey level developers, and I'm very sorry to say that I work with some people like that sometimes, then yes, you need a people like that, because like I don't know what to call them, like stupid smart people. Like we're talking about people who they can write code, but they don't know how to do a stand-up. And apparently it's beyond them to learn how to do that, which is hilarious to me. I cannot understand it. Same thing with architecture. For some reason, some people are able to learn just enough coding to ship code, but they cannot figure out how to build a system that is actually going to work. And I argue that you shouldn't hire people like that, because fundamentally the best thing for you, in my opinion at the very least, is that you hire software developers who know what the fuck they're doing. And then you have them do all these sorts of things. What I find to be the best structure is usually when you have two layers of software developers, but the architects are usually like the worst situation I've ever been in when it comes to architecture was that the company had a sign-off process for a new system that took at least one full-time hire. In other words, it was actually called a digital product owner. I'd never heard the term before I joined this company. It took a full-time person's job to help a development team go through the process of approving a system. And the total time spent to prepare was measured in months. And you probably go now and say, hey Frederick, yeah, but let's be honest here. There's a lot of systems and they're probably fairly big and there's a lot of considerations for large companies. There's a lot of risk and so forth. And I go, absolutely, you are completely right. So I tried in the same company to get a subscription, just a basic subscription, nothing in it, like literally nothing. And in order to see, okay, so how much of a difference does it make if I'm building the next Facebook or next Google system versus if, and I'm literally saying, my business case was I want to take a picture of a cow and put it on a website so that people can go to something something and see a picture of a cow. That's it. That's all I want to do. It took exactly the same amount of time and resources to do that. Because the entire process of delivering and planning and doing all of this sort of stuff was tailored towards keeping the architects employed. And I argue that when you have too many consultants and people who basically are being paid for nothing other than having an opinion about something, you will never get rid of them. That's where you have all your cost in government and like all of these different people who need to sign off on absolutely everything. They are professional leeches, in my opinion. Because in a sane world, I argue, you would have very, very informed people who really know their stuff, who would understand what you're doing and basically try to help you make sure that you're getting a good system out the door. And if a process works and the cost is identical for a picture of a cow and building the next Facebook or some gigantic super system, there seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy in the resources that you're like something isn't really going on, going as well as it should be, if you ask me, at the very least. And that's the main experience I have with architects, honestly. The way I see it usually works, when it works really, really well, is when you have software developers who may or may not be all that experienced with designing good systems and know all of the infrastructure and all the solutions and so forth. If you pair them with people who really know how all that stuff works and actually know software development, as I call them, true seniors, then the only thing that most teams will arrive at is that, hey guys, you know what would be a pretty good idea? If we just agreed on a few of those basic, if we're doing cloud now, for example, a few basic setups for like how we set up, like a basic setup for how to set up a new system, how we do load balancing, things like that. A basic setup like a Terraform script or something similar to that just bootstraps the things that you need for most common applications. And then when you do actually decide on expanding the architecture and so forth, you sit down with the people who really know how to build software and look at the different services and all the technical details and see, okay, so what parts do we need here? That's not a discussion you can have with an architect. Not the ones who I work with, at the very least, because as I said, they're so high level that they can conceptually design a system, but what they end up doing instead is just to design a process. I like to say that the most, or rather, it actually happened. It was where I came up with the term. So I was at another company where they were going to make a systems diagram over the company's infrastructure. And they couldn't achieve that with 50 people, because they had 50 people. In meetings over several months, they couldn't get to a finished diagram in 9 months. It wasn't even halfway finished. And I said to my manager, you have just paid 50 architects or business people at that level, where you just imagine how much we're talking in terms of money, for a completely useless flowchart that you can use for absolutely nothing. And the second that and she did, like the person driving those things, she left. So now that document is just sitting there somewhere on a Confluence page, and you paid probably hundreds of thousands over the course of that year and got nothing for it. And the reality is that my team and my software developers and so forth, in terms of like how to understand systems and like all that stuff, we made more headway in a fraction of that time. So I will say, if you want to throw a lot of money out the window, then yeah, sure, get yourself an architect team. But if you want to be truly effective at designing a good architecture, get yourself true seniors who know who have built quite a lot of systems that work in accordance with the sort of things that you need within your company, who really know how to build those sorts of systems, and have them sit down and create a few basic starter templates for how to set up a small project. Because mostly, if you're designing a new project, you don't need an architect to design for like what's going to happen in 10 years. You usually need a simple system that literally every single startup will start with, or every single new product, even if it's a gigantic corporation, will have the same basic need. It's just different scales of like the companies, but the systems themselves are usually designed at a very small scale to start off with, and then they grow. And the best people to answer how to do that in an efficient way is usually the sort of people who are actually building those sort of systems, not the people who sit in meetings and design at the conceptual level how it's going to work. Because that part, I promise you, sit down with a true senior with a bit of social skills and so forth, and set them together with the people who are going to actually put the requirements on them. And I've never seen it not end with a working system of some sort. The architect, in my opinion, is just this completely unnecessary go-to or go-between that basically just creates another layer between you and the people who are actually going to do the job. So what I want you to take away from this is that I really don't think it's a good idea to have an architect's team. I think it's a really, really good idea to have a team of principal engineers or staff engineers or so forth, or like at the very least have a community of the top-notch performers, like the best of the best that you have in terms of software development, to have them come together and talk a little bit about things that are common things that most of the teams or most of the organization needs in order to scale their systems effectively. Because most organizations, guys, they don't have a grand strategy for how all the systems are going to work together. It doesn't work that way. It works the way that projects pop up left and right, and then in hindsight you try to make them work together and stuff like that. All those sorts of complexities, much more organic than a grand architectural vision. That's the way it works in reality. And so the best thing for you is if these people who know how to really know how to build good systems and how to scale them and run teams and stuff like that, if they share their thoughts, make sure that other teams can follow along if they want to, put up some recommended practices, put up some basic starter packs for like templates for, as I said, Terraform templates or whatever, so that the new team can start up a new project and be fairly certain that they're going to have all the things that they need, and think about all the things like security and scaling and all this sort of stuff. Because this is stuff that the true seniors, they know this stuff because they've been on more than one system usually and built a few of them, so they know usually how things go. That's all you really need. But having like an architecture team that just enforces a big grand scheme without really knowing what the fuck they're doing or like what systems are going to be built usually just ends with a lot of money that goes into basically documentation that practically nobody reads. And in an extreme case, as with this company I was talking about, you're literally paying people just to get me and my coworkers and like everybody to get them through the system that they put in place. So you're paying ineffective people to maintain an ineffective process, where, as I said to them, the cost of my picture of a cow is measured in, I can take you, I have more change, I have the change necessary in my pocket to pay you to do that. But the cost to get an approval on that is hundreds of thousands, and delays measured in months and weeks. And my argument is the only person who benefits from that is the people who own the process. Have a great day.